Welcome to the New Life Stories channel. We hope you will have fun with us. Enjoy watching.
My spouse had a suspicion that she had seen me looking at my mother-in-law during a family celebration. She nudged me in the side. "Why are you looking at my mother?" she asked. "You're making up tall tales," I quickly replied, shifting my gaze to someone else. My mother-in-law was quite popular, especially with the male gender. All the optical sensors were fixed on her. She was dressed to impress. A tight dress emphasized her deep cleavage. It seemed as if the dress was about to burst at the seams. Not many dresses could accommodate such large breasts as my mother-in-law's. In her younger years, she was undoubtedly a stunning woman. There were rumors of her stormy affairs and numerous suitors. My wife told me these stories, but I never believed them. However, my imagination began to run wild. With my mother-in-law, we saw each other rarely, only on family holidays. The rest of the time, we relied on phone calls to keep in touch. She didn't interfere in our lives, but that night my mother-in-law was on fire. Her large gold earrings jiggled. She couldn't stay still for a minute. The rest of the relatives were silent, including my spouse. Compared to my mother-in-law, she was a pale shadow. She was neither seen nor heard. She didn't utter a word. This is not my spouse, I thought, and putting the salad aside, I looked at my mother-in-law again. She seemed to sense that I was paying attention to her. She burst into laughter, which grew even louder as she playfully jiggled her breasts. It was as if she was back to her youth, radiating a carefree and vibrant energy. Surprisingly, she looked no more than 45 years old, although she was actually in her late 60s. As for me, I'm just over 40, and I feel utterly exhausted by family life. The mere thought of a spouse causes me indescribable frustration. For many months now, I haven't even touched her, and to tell you the truth, I have no desire to. I have no motivation to force myself into any kind of intimacy. Instead, my eyes wander to other women. I am always on the lookout. I make attempts, successful or not, to get involved with them. By the way, I am rarely wrong in my search. However, when it comes to my spouse, I find myself at a loss. She once seemed intriguing and tantalizing to me with her cheerful disposition and voluptuous figure, but that was a long time ago. I haven't met any women like that lately. I mostly meet middle-aged women. If I meet a young woman, I wish myself victory and try to win her over. Young women are usually less demanding and don't have a lot of life experience, so they are easier to achieve. I can't get rid of the feeling of curiosity and anxiety, wondering how my mother-in-law behaves in love affairs, what she can afford and what she can't. Does she kiss well, and in general, what does she look like in her natural state, so to speak? I stared at her, and my spouse shoved me in the side again. "Stick to decorum. What are you staring at?" "Leave me alone," I replied, hoping she would stop bugging me. "Isn't it any of your business who I stare at?" "I forgot to ask you," replied my wife nervously. "You better shut up like you usually do and devour your salad." I snapped at her. The guests began to dance vigorously, and my mother-in-law joined them. Even though she was a large woman, she didn't seem to care. I even felt like putting my arm around her waist. I realized that what I was seeing made me feel a burning sensation in my pants. I needed to come up with a plan. My thoughts were racing at breakneck speed. How could I get her outside? What excuse can I use? It was cold outside. I had vivid memories of my mother-in-law's love of cars. She knows more about them than anyone I know. This gave me a stray thought. After waiting for about 5 minutes, I couldn't hold back any longer and blabbed, "Mother-in-law, I need your expertise. My car engine is making a knocking noise. Would you mind taking a look at it? Maybe you can give me some advice." At that moment, my spouse was not around. She had gone into another room with a disgruntled expression on her face, as if I was to blame for her strained relationship with her mother. After pondering for a while, the mother-in-law agreed. "All right, let's go. It'll be a chance to get some clean air. It's getting stuffy in here." None of the guests suspected anything amiss. Everyone knew my mother-in-law knew about cars, which is rare for a woman. She got up from the table, and I could hardly contain my impatience. I wanted to urge her to hurry up, but I held back through gritted teeth. We walked out into the yard and headed for my car. I opened the door and invited my mother-in-law inside. She hesitated, not really wanting to do it, but I could tell by the gleam in her eyes that she understood perfectly. Gesturing for her to sit in the passenger seat, my wife's mother adjusted her dress and squeezed into the seat. I followed her example and started the engine, finding that there was no problem. My mother-in-law looked at me in surprise and exclaimed, "Everything is perfectly fine." I replied, "No, not everything." "What do you mean?" asked the mother-in-law, confused. "Well," I said, a little embarrassed, "I mean that I appreciate you as a woman." "My God, that's why I found an excuse to get you away from your guests. I wanted to be frank with you." A lot of people appreciate frankness. My mother-in-law blushed, lowered her eyes, and adjusted the neckline of her dress. She glanced at me, but quickly averted her gaze. I gently stroked her knee, then the other. I reached for the neckline, but we might be seen, she whispered softly, letting me undo the top button. "Don't worry, no one will see us. The windows are tinted," I assured her. She nodded and let me touch the most prominent part of her body. I let out a sharp exclamation. It was uncomfortable, but that's what was exciting. When you feel the excitement, even if there is no actual chase, the anticipation makes everything inside you tremble. My mother-in-law turned out to be a wise and experienced woman. She did not make any unnecessary movements. Everything was clear and calculated. I saw in her a wealth of experience, so my spouse turned out to be right. My mother-in-law had dated many men. There was no shyness or modesty in her, and I admired that. I don't like it when women hesitate to act, embarrassed, and say they can't do this and that. It was different with my mother-in-law. She knew exactly what needed to be done. She let me do what I wanted to do and never once scolded me. I got out of the car first, stretched, and looked at the windows. No one was peeking at us from behind closed curtains. Everyone was having a great time. My wife's mother followed me out, swaying her hips gracefully. She had reignited the spark in me. We didn't give in to temptation, however, and didn't go back to the car. Instead, we headed toward the house. To my surprise, my wife was waiting for us there. "Where did you disappear to?" she asked. "I searched the whole house looking for you. I even looked in the bathroom." I grinned to myself, thinking what a stupid mistake she had made. I quickly made an excuse, telling her that we were just listening to the car engine because it was making strange noises. My spouse looked at me with an angry look. She had never understood anything about cars, and that was fine with me. "So you found the problem?" she asked. "Yes, we found it," I replied. There was no way I could take it for granted that the real problem was her. At this point, my mother-in-law joined our conversation and suggested, "We'll look at the motor tomorrow. I'm a little busy right now. Could you come to my work tomorrow lunch hour?" I was ready to burst with happiness. Oh my God, she seems to have loosened up too, and she's enjoying it. That's great. It means she's starting to get the hang of it. I can say the same about myself. There's so much we haven't tried yet. "Thanks, I'll be sure to drive up," I said and went to mingle with the guests. I couldn't believe that I had put up with all this for so many years, doing the boring family routine. If I had known earlier that my mother-in-law was so good, I would have left my wife long ago and gone to her. I couldn't wait for tomorrow. I acted like an inexperienced young man who has his first date with a girl tomorrow. I felt young and in a good mood. I drove home with my wife. I hope I have a great day tomorrow. Dear friends, if you liked this story, please share your thoughts in the comments and put like or dislike. And maybe you will want to subscribe to our channel. Thank you all. Until new stories.